Hi everybody, my name is Brian Roberts, and in today's video we're going to talk about how to play a seventh chord, specifically a dominant seventh or a minor seventh. Basically I want to teach you how to navigate this modifier when it comes to the chord language. And just so you know, a seventh is not the same as a major seventh, so be sure to recognize that there's a difference between those two. I do have another video explaining how to play a major seventh. Go ahead and check that out. I'll put it in the link below, in the description below. So the prerequisite for this is knowing how to play the chord first and foremost. So this also works with bar chords. So you're going to want to know how to play the chord, and you're also going to want to know how to identify an octave within said chord. So if we take the chord D, which is a 4-stringed chord, make sure you're not playing the low E and the A string. That's not part of the D chord formula. You're going to be playing 4 strings and fingers going where they should go. If this is your first time seeing it, index fingers on the 2nd fret of the G string, ring fingers on the 3rd fret of the B string, and middle fingers on the 2nd fret of the high E string. Okay, anyway, what we want to be able to do is find the octave, because you know how numbers work, right? 7 is very close to 8, and when it comes to chord theory, an 8 is actually redundant. So we do that by starting on the root note, essentially where the chord begins, and using our ears to listen for that octave distance. So when we compare those two strings, that's the sound of a 5th. Bum, 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 bum. I use the Star Wars theme to teach a 5th. So we're not looking for a 5th, we're looking for an octave. And the jingle I use for octave is somewhere. And that indeed is the octave. So with this D shape, your root is on the D string and the octave is on the 2nd string, the B string. So now that you've identified that the ring finger is where your octave is, the difference between a major seventh and a 7, in this case a dominant seventh, is when you play a major seventh, you're actually playing a true 7. That's an actual 7. When you're playing 7, it's actually what's called a flat 7. So you need to take that octave, move it back not 1 fret, but 2 frets to get to the flat 7. So this right here is a flat 7. Here's 8, here's true actual 7, and then that's the flat 7 that's being symbolized by that in the chord symbol. You have to keep everything else intact, so you might have to switch your fingers around. A lot of people end up translating this as being like an inverted, like physically inverted D chord. And before we play, a dominant 7th chord kind of has a stinky, bluesy, kind of sour sound to it. So let's see if that rings true when we play this. So everything else stays the same, still 4 strings. We've modified the redundant octave to a flat 7, and now we have a D7. Here we go. And that's how you play a D7. Now this will work with every single one of your open chords as well as bar chords. So let's just try some other chords for an example. I typically teach A next. So A is a 5-string chord. You put your fingers like so. If you don't know how to play A, please brush up on that. We're going to try and find the octave. So the very first 2 strings in sequence are root 5th. So we'll try the next string. Ah, bingo. Somewhere. So that'd be my middle finger with the way that I'm playing it. I'm going to move that 2 frets back, which actually ends up falling off the guitar and becoming an open string. So I simply remove that finger, and again we're going to have this bluesy dominant 7th sound. There you go. So to me, it's more important to know the language of chord symbols rather than just brute force memorizing it. Yeah, it's possible, just learn that's an A7 and that's a D7. But understanding what it sounds like and also how it got its name, I think, is pretty important for growing. So that's why I'm making this video. Let's try E next. E is a 6-string chord. We want to try and find the octave because we want to move that octave back 2 frets in order to turn it from a regular chord to a dominant 7th chord. So here's E, root 5th, Star Wars, and then the next string, somewhere. Okay, so that's my ring finger there on the D string, 3rd from where I'm at, 4th from the bottom. So ring finger goes back 2 frets. It also happens to become an open string. So we take that finger off and we give it a play. There you go. E7. Okay, so that's essentially how you can turn any major chord into a 7th chord. Okay, but this also works with minor chords as well. So when we play D minor, you know, it's comprised of roots, flat thirds, and fifths. Again, sorry for my penmanship. I'm right-handed and trying to do this left-handed. Keep in mind that D minor 7th is not the same as D minor major 7th. Again, the modifier is 7th or major 7th. Okay? So the core chord, D minor or D, D minor or D, and then the modifier, either 7 or major 7th. Important concept there. So D minor 7. You start with a D minor. You locate the octave. And you move that octave 2 frets. Major 7th to a flat 7. Here we go. There you go. D minor 7. So minor 7th chords kind of have a little bit more of a romantic, kind of like Starry Night kind of feel to it, rather than just sad, like if you just play regular D minor, the saddest chord of all. It kind of makes it a little bit more expensive when you put a 7th in it. So this one sounds a lot better than the major 7th counterpart, which this would be D minor major 7th, because I'm only going back 1 fret. Listen to that. Ooh, kind of spooky. But that's for a different video. If you're interested in that video, I'll put a link in the description below. So the 7th modifier will work whether the chord is major or minor. But you always have to remember that when it's a 7, you go back 2 frets, turning it into a flat 7. If the modifier is major 7th, you only go back 1 fret. And I know that's a little confusing, but you just kind of have to deal. So you can do that with E minor. You can find the octave, which happens to be where your middle finger is if you're playing it like me. You move that back 2 frets, it becomes an open string, and this is actually probably the easiest chord, one of the easiest chords to play. Just 1 finger. So this is an E minor 7th. You can also do it with A minor. And again, I'm finding the octave from the root, somewhere. So that's my ring finger. I want to turn it into an A minor 7. And that's how it's done. Simply remove that finger because it goes from here. There it is. And this also works with bar chords, whether it's major or minor. Let's say I'm just taking an E flat major bar chord here as an A shape. I locate the octave, which is right there in the middle of that ring finger bar, and I want to turn it into a dominant 7, the 7th, so I move back 2 frets. I keep the other 2 spots intact, and again, when you have a major chord with a 7th, not to be confused with a major 7th, you're going to get this bluesy sound. And lo and behold, there it is. You can also do it with minor chords. So let's say I'm doing a C sharp minor chord here, bar chord. I find the octave. I move it back 2 frets. And then again, I should get that kind of starry night kind of sound. Very romantic. And there you go, boys and girls. This is how you play a 7th chord. And if you're curious on how to play a major 7th chord, like I said, I did a previous video on that, and you can check that out later. If you like this video, give it a like, give me a subscription, whatever. More importantly, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I am actually very eager to curate videos specifically to what you want. So leave a comment below if you have a question about anything, and I will happily create a video for you. Until next time, aloha.